Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
It was May in the year 2025. A big surprise came for world trade. President Donald Trump made a very important announcement. He was speaking from the United Arab Emirates, far away from the United States. President Trump said the United States would put new taxes on goods coming from many other countries. These taxes are called tariffs. They make imported goods cost more money. He said this plan was a new way for the United States to handle trade. It meant the U.S. would not have long talks and meetings with countries one by one first. In the past, countries talked a lot before changing trade rules or taxes. But now, the U.S. government would decide the new taxes by itself. Then, it would send official letters to about 150 countries around the world. These letters would tell them about the new import taxes they must pay to sell goods in the United States. President Trump said this was needed because many countries want trade deals with the U.S. He said there was simply not enough time to meet with all of them and negotiate in the traditional way. He called this approach very fair. This new idea is part of the America First plan, which focuses on putting the United States' interests first in trade. It is a big change from how trade talks usually happen between nations. Before this, earlier in April, there was another plan. That plan was for a general tax on all imports. That caused worry about a big trade war around the world. But this new plan in May is different. Now, the United States will tell countries the exact taxes first. Only after that can countries maybe talk about the rates or try to change them. This sudden news surprised many people around the world. Trade leaders, business owners, and governments were not expecting this direct action. They are now not sure what will happen next for their businesses and their country's trade with the U.S. This announcement means global trade is facing a new time of not knowing and worry. The world is watching to see the effects of these new U.S. trade taxes. 2. A big change in trade. On May 16, 2025, President Donald J. Trump made a big announcement. He was speaking in the United Arab Emirates. President Trump said the United States would put new taxes on goods coming into the country. These taxes are called tariffs. He said the U.S. would do this unilaterally. This means the U.S. would decide the new taxes alone. They would not talk with other countries first to make agreements. President Trump said that the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, and the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, would send letters soon. These letters would go to about 150 countries. The letters would tell each country about the new taxes they must pay to sell goods in the U.S. market. President Trump explained why he chose this way. He said that too many countries, about 150, wanted to make trade deals with the United States. He said there was not enough time to meet with every country to talk about a deal. So, the U.S. would just set the taxes. He said this would be done very fairly. After the U.S. tells countries the new taxes, then each country can ask for changes or talk about it individually. This new plan was different from an earlier idea. In April, on the second day of the month, President Trump had a plan for reciprocal tariffs. That plan put a basic tax on all imports. It also added higher taxes on countries that the U.S. said were unfair. But the plan announced on May 16th goes past just talking. It means the U.S. will just tell countries what the taxes will be. President Trump said, "We won't be able to meet with all those 150 countries." He clearly stated that the U.S. will be telling people what they'll be paying to do business in the United States. This new way is driven by President Trump's America First policy. This policy means the U.S. thinks about its own country's interests first in trade. President Trump feels that for many years, other countries have not been fair to the U.S. in trade. He believes this new approach is needed to fix that. So, the big change is that the U.S. is deciding the import taxes on its own. They will announce the rates in letters first. After that, other countries can make appeals or try to negotiate. This is a new step in how the United States handles trade with the world. It surprised many people and countries. 3. Is it allowed? The president's new plan for import taxes brought big questions. People asked, is this allowed by U.S. law? The government said the president has the power to do this. They pointed to two main laws. One is called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. People call it IEEPA. The other is part of the Trade Act of 1974. Earlier, in April 2025, President Trump said there was a national emergency. He said this was because the U.S. bought much more from other countries than it sold to them. This is called a trade deficit. He used this emergency idea to put a 10% tax on many goods coming into the country. He also used parts of the Trade Act. For example, one part lets the president put taxes on goods if he thinks it is for national security. Another part is for countries that have unfair trade rules against the U.S. But many people and groups did not agree. They said the president did not have the power to put such wide taxes on so many countries. They said that the U.S. Constitution gives the power to tax to Congress, not the president. Several groups, like states and businesses, started lawsuits. They went to a special court for trade issues. They argued that trade deficits are not a sudden emergency. They said the IEEPA law was not made to put taxes on almost everything coming into the country. The government lawyers defended the president's actions. They said Congress has given the president power over trade for a long time through laws like the Trade Act of 1974. They argued that declaring a national emergency gives the president even more power to act quickly on trade and money issues with other countries. They said the lawsuits should not stop the plan. Putting the new taxes into practice is also hard. Every tax rate must be written into U.S. law. This is done through special papers from the president that change the official list of taxes on goods. For the new plan, the government needs to set different rates for about 150 countries. This takes time. Usually, changing these tax rates needs public notice. People and businesses might need 30 days to know about changes and give their ideas. It is not clear how the government will do this quickly, as the plan talks about sending letters with the new rates soon. Tax experts say these steps cannot just be skipped. After the letters, the government still needs to make the changes legal. Other countries can also challenge the new taxes. They can go to the World Trade Organization, called the WTO. The WTO has rules about how countries trade with each other. Countries might say the U.S. taxes are not fair. They might say the U.S. is treating different countries differently without a good reason. This is against WTO rules about not treating countries better or worse than others. In the past, when the U.S. put taxes on steel, other countries went to the WTO, and the WTO ruled against the U.S. Many experts think this new plan could also lead to problems and arguments at the WTO. If the WTO rules against the U.S., other countries might be allowed to put their own taxes on U.S. goods in return. 4. Other countries are not happy. When the United States announced its new trade taxes, countries around the world were not happy. Many leaders spoke out against the plan. They said these new taxes, called tariffs, would hurt trade everywhere. In Europe, the European Union quickly made a plan. They said if the U.S. kept the tariffs, they would put their own taxes on American products. They made a list of goods like American whiskey, chicken, and even motorcycles that would face high taxes. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said the U.S. action was a big hit to trade. She warned that it could cause other countries to stop trading freely too much, making problems worse around the world. Germany's leader, Olaf Scholz, called the U.S. step wrong. He said it was an attack on the trade system that helps countries become rich. Britain's new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, agreed. He said that in a trade war, nobody wins. In Asia, countries also showed strong feelings. China was very angry. They said again that trade wars do not have winners. China asked the U.S. to stop the tariffs right away and talk fairly. China's government said it would take steps to protect its own businesses and people. Japan also protested. Japan's Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, said the new U.S. taxes would hurt the world economy. He worried that they might break international trade rules. Japan had serious concerns about its trade deals with the United States. Closer to the U.S. in North America, Canada and Mexico prepared for problems. These countries trade a lot with the U.S. Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said some U.S. tariffs were still in place, like on steel. He promised to fight these tariffs to help Canadian workers. Mexico's President, Claudia Sheinbaum, said the tariffs announced earlier were not fair. She said Mexico would also use taxes against U.S. goods. She said there was no good reason for the U.S. action and that nobody wins from these taxes. Countries in Southeast Asia were also worried. Some of these countries were hit very hard by the new U.S. tariffs. Vietnam, for example, faced a very high tax rate of 46%. Thailand faced 37%. These countries quickly asked the U.S. to talk. Vietnam said the U.S. taxes were unfair and asked for lower rates. Thailand also wanted to talk fast to lower the high tax. Many countries in the ASEAN group saw that 6 of their members faced taxes over 30%. This was much higher than taxes for countries like Europe or Japan. Leaders in the region worried that more trade problems could make it hard for their economies to grow. Other countries also spoke out. Even allies of the United States were not happy. Australia's Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, said the tariffs did not make sense. He called the action unfriendly. He warned that it would make the world economy less sure and make things cost more for people in the U.S. New Zealand also did not like the new policy. In general, governments in many countries sent a clear message. They said that if the U.S. tariffs stayed, they would answer back. They plan to use their own taxes or go to international trade groups to protect their businesses and their country's interests. 5. Making it happen is hard. Putting the new tariff plan into action is not easy. There are many problems that make it hard to happen. President Donald Trump announced the plan, saying new import duties would come soon. But making this plan real takes much more time and effort. First, changing tariff rates in the United States has clear rules. The government must follow these rules. It needs to tell the public about the changes and ask for comments from businesses and people affected. This process takes time, at least 1 month. President Trump talked about sending letters quickly, but the law requires these steps for public notice. These steps cannot be skipped. Government offices like the Commerce Department and the U.S. Trade Representative have a very big job. They need to decide the exact tariff rate for each of the many countries President Trump wants to tax. President Trump said the rates will be fair, but someone must calculate these specific rates for over 100 countries. They must also write clear rules for how these new rates will work. There is no clear plan yet from these offices about how long this task will take. Many countries are not happy about the new tariffs. They feel the rates are too high or unfair. They will likely try to stop them or change them. They can ask the U.S. government for talks. They can also take their complaints to the World Trade Organization, called the WTO. The WTO is where countries solve trade problems. Other countries might say the U.S. tariffs break the rules of the WTO. This happened before with other U.S. tariffs. So the U.S. government may face many legal challenges from other nations and the WTO. This new plan can also hurt how the United States works with other countries. When one country acts alone like this, it can make friends and partners angry. Other countries might not want to work with the U.S. on trade or other global matters. They might stop talking about new trade deals. This can make relationships worse. Businesses in the U.S. and other countries also face problems. They do not know exactly what the new rules and costs will be. This makes it hard for them to plan. Companies might stop investing money because they are not sure about the future of trade and costs. It also makes it difficult and expensive to buy and sell goods across borders. The paths goods travel, called supply chains, can be broken or become more costly. This uncertainty makes it hard for businesses to work well. So, while President Trump announced the plan, the steps to make it happen are difficult and take time. There are legal requirements, a big job for government workers, possible legal fights with other countries and the WTO, and problems for businesses. All these things make putting the plan into action hard. 6. How it hurts now. When the news about the new tariffs came out, the world's money markets reacted quickly. Stock prices in many countries went down. The value of the US dollar also became a little weaker. People who invest money became nervous because they were not sure what would happen next with trade. One big worry was about prices going up. Tariffs are like a tax on goods coming into the country. When things cost more to bring in, the prices for those things can go up for people who buy them. This is called inflation. Experts said that these new tariffs could make prices rise faster in the U.S. Big companies that sell things to people started to talk about this. Walmart, which is a very large store in the US, warned its customers. Walmart said that prices on many items would start to increase soon, maybe by the end of May or in June. They said the cost of the tariffs was too big for them to pay, so the customers would have to pay more. Other stores that sell things for homes, like tools and building supplies, said the same thing. They warned that the prices of imported goods would get higher for shoppers. Farmers in the US also started to feel pain very fast. Other countries that buy food from the US were not happy about the tariffs. Some of these countries put their own tariffs on US farm products, like soybeans and pork. This made it hard for US farmers to sell their products in other countries. Prices for these farm goods started to fall, which meant farmers earned less money. Farm groups said that these trade problems were making it very difficult for farmers to make a living. Making things in factories also started to slow down. Companies were not sure about the future of trade. Some factories that make cars stopped plans to build new things or hire more workers. Companies that make airplanes and technology also waited before spending money on new projects. They worried that the products they make could be hit by tariffs from other countries. People who study the economy, called economists, became more worried. They started to say that the US economy might not grow as much this year. Some economists thought that the economy could even stop growing or get a little smaller. They said the trade problems and the tariffs were making the future look unclear for businesses. There were already signs that the economy was slowing down. In the first 3 months of the year 2025, the US economy got smaller. This was the first time this happened in a few years. Many experts said that the problems with trade, like fewer goods being bought and sold between countries because of the tariffs, were a main reason for this slowdown. Businesses felt more and more uncertain. A survey in April showed that many people in the US thought President Donald Trump's actions on the economy, including the tariffs, were not steady or predictable. This feeling of not knowing what will happen next made it hard for companies to plan for the future. So, the tariffs announced by President Trump quickly started to cause problems. Prices were expected to rise for everyday things. Farmers were losing money. Businesses were slowing down their plans, and economists were cutting their ideas for how much the economy would grow, seeing clear risks because of the trade tensions. 7. What happens next year? People talk about what will happen in the future with the new trade rules. Some people think the rules are good. They say the rules can help factories in the United States make more things. They believe this can make the country stronger. They think American workers will get more jobs. Some people in the government, like Peter Navarro, who worked with President Trump, think this way. They say other countries have not been fair for many years. But many people who study money and business, called economists, do not agree. They think the rules can hurt the economy. They worry that other countries will make their own rules on goods from the United States. This means American companies that sell things to other countries might sell less. Farmers, car makers, and other businesses that export might have problems. Economists also say that people in the United States will pay more for things they buy from other countries. Experts say the United States sells many services to other countries, like help with money or computer technology. If other countries are angry about the trade rules, they might make it harder for American service companies to do business there. This could hurt big American companies that work in finance and technology. Let's think about some important types of business for the future. The car business is one. Some people think that because buying cars from other countries might cost more, companies will build more cars in the United States. This could mean new jobs for American workers. This is a goal for President Trump. The government has also given money to help companies build factories in the United States, like for computer chips. But building a new factory takes a long time, maybe 10 or 20 years. Companies need to know the rules will stay the same for many years before they spend a lot of money. Another important business is technology, like computers and phones. The parts for these things come from many countries. If buying parts from other countries costs more, companies will have to move their factories. They might move to Mexico, India, or Vietnam. Some might move to the United States, but moving factories also takes many years. People might have to pay more for computers and phones. Rules on computer chips could also make it harder for companies to build new chip factories in the United States, even with government help. For farmers, the future looks difficult. If other countries put their own rules on food from the United States, American farmers might lose the people who buy their products. For example, China buys a lot of things like soybeans from the United States. If China buys less, American farmers lose money. It is hard for farmers to find new buyers quickly. Losing these markets can be a problem for a very long time. In general, many people who study money think the new trade rules can make the world economy grow slower. It can make it harder for companies to make new things and use new ideas. If the rules keep changing, companies might not want to put their money in the United States. They might choose to do business in other countries instead. Some people hope that the new rules will make other countries want to talk and make new agreements. If new agreements are made, maybe some problems can be fixed. But right now, many economists think that even if some factories come back to the United States, the cost for people and businesses will be bigger than the good things that happen. They think the world economy could become less strong because of these changes. 8. What people say and the end. The new trade rules started a lot of talk in the United States. People had different ideas about President Trump's plan. In politics, the Republican Party was not fully in agreement. Some Republicans in Congress supported President Trump. They believed the tariffs would help the American economy first. They said it was important to change trade rules. But other Republicans did not like the plan. Former Vice President Mike Pence said the tariffs were a very large tax on American families. He worried about the cost for people. Senator Rand Paul also said he was not sure if the tariffs would help or hurt in the end. Some Republicans in the Senate wanted rules to limit the president's power on tariffs. Democrats were mostly against the tariffs. Almost all Democrats said the tariffs were bad. They said the new rules would hurt American workers and make things cost more for everyone. Leaders like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said they would hold meetings to discuss the tariffs. polls showed that most Democrats were strongly against the plan. Many businesses and groups representing industries were also unhappy. Big groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said the tariffs were a bad idea. Farmers were very worried because they sell a lot of their products, like grain and meat, to other countries. They feared these countries would buy less from them. Big stores, like Walmart, warned that prices for things people buy every day would go up. This is because it costs more to bring goods into the country with the new tariffs. Car companies were also concerned about higher costs for parts and cars, making cars more expensive for people to buy. They also faced uncertainty in planning their work. People across the country started to feel worried. They were less sure about the future of the economy. They feared that their money would buy less because prices would increase. This hurt how confident they felt about the economy. Experts who study the economy had very different opinions. Some people who support the tariffs said they were a bold step. They believed the tariffs could fix trade problems from many years and help factories open again in the United States. They saw it as a way to make trade fairer for the U.S. But many other economists strongly disagreed. Famous economists like Paul Krugman said the tariffs were dangerous for the economy. More than 1,000 economists signed a public letter saying that tariffs are bad for the country. They said tariffs act like a tax on people living in the U.S. They believed the tariffs would slow down the economy and cause problems with other nations. The new tariff rules have started many big changes. They make trading with many countries more difficult and less predictable. Businesses and families now face higher costs and more uncertainty. The future of global trade is not clear right now. There is much talk and debate about whether these tariffs are good or bad for the United States and the world economy. This big change in trade policy affects people and businesses everywhere. What do you think will be the most important long-term effect of these tariffs?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.